Hello summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. In this one we're going to talk about some reworks that are set to hit the Rift in the near future. A lot of these are really exciting and I'm honestly super pumped to give you guys my thoughts and also break them down for you guys. Remember though that all of this information either could be pulled, iceboxed, or even slightly altered before it actually hits the live server, so make sure you leave any feedback you have down below as we are always reading it. With all of these reworks hitting the Rift left and right, our question of the day for you is which other champion do you personally want to see reworked? If you don't have an answer, feel free to just let us know which scheduled rework is actually your favorite and the one that you're looking forward to the most. Also, if you want to get those ranked season rewards, then make sure to go check out ProGuides.com. ProGuides is the best proven way to get better at League of Legends, and we have hundreds of guide videos just like this one. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description down below, pick up a Challenger Coach, and rank up now. Alright, now that stuff being said, let's get into the video. So, to kick this video off, let's talk about a rework that is coming very soon with Diana. Really soon, actually. Rioter Squad 5 has mentioned that the changes he's looking to give her are pretty soon, and they look pretty promising. First off, let's talk about the voiceover and her model.
A man, a woman, and a yordle walk into the sun.
Actually, for that part, it's nothing. Zip. Nada. That part has not been deemed problematic.
They die.
So the only major changes she's receiving are to her gameplay itself. However, she is set to receive some new visuals, sound effects, and icons for her abilities, so at least that's a bit of the rework feel that we are used to. With her actual kit, the smaller changes that we're seeing are to her passive and overall numbers seeing some changes. The big kicker though is that her R and E are being swapped. Yeah, you heard that right. This is going to mean a lot, aside from the obvious fact that her ultimate is just completely different now. I've got a few thoughts about this, but first, it's definitely worth mentioning that there has to be some sort of discussion over Diana's identity. Is Diana an assassin or is she more of a bruiser? There's kind of a split in how players want to play her, and Squad 5 has mentioned that he's trying to keep both options viable. Without a doubt, many players build her differently, and it's nice to see that multiple build options are going to remain viable. As long as it doesn't hit Kai'Sa's proportions of diverse, things should be pretty okay. It's worth mentioning that this rider specifically has played a major role in the creation of Ivern, Ornn, and Sylas. Ivern and Ornn have been great additions to the cast, while Sylas has been problematic. Overall, these champions have received very little complaints compared to others though, so I do believe the Diana changes will be pretty well received. In terms of her ultimate changes, I really like it. First, we have to see all of the specifics of it though, like will her ultimate still do damage, or will it remain purely as utility only, and how they will readjust her dash. Will it reset in the same way as now, and if so, because it's being moved onto a basic ability, will it have to be significantly weaker? With this information, all of us can make more accurate judgments, but the overall thought process behind these changes is really good. The reason for these changes is because right now, before level 6, you're not really a champion. Level 6 is when you basically unlock her as a champ, because before 6 she's just a very powerful minion and her kit can't function to maximum capacity. Her Q really revolves around resets for her dash, while her W and E require her to be within melee range, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. This means that without her ultimate, it's really difficult for her to play the game and can be frustrating to play as Diana. And what this entails is a potential balancing nightmare, as what the balance team has to consider is how much poke she should be allowed to mitigate, how much power she should receive after 6 as compensation for her poor early game, and whether or not she can even be played competitively. Imagine playing Aurelia, but being unable to use your stun until level 6, or playing Kha'Zix and not receiving isolation damage bonuses until level 6 as well. Sure, these champions can work, but they're missing essential parts of their kit and function suboptimally until a certain breaking point when they finally become a totally complete package. A much better example of where this goes correctly is with Kayle, since she's designed as a champion for late game, and you can also see her progressive strength as the game carries on. Level 6, levels 11, and 16 feel like all stages of growth, while with the current Diana, you transform from a minion into a champion at level 6. It's almost like you're skipping from childhood to adulthood over the course of 5 minutes. Another champion receiving some work is Lux, and while her gameplay isn't set to receive any changes, Lux players can be pretty excited because Lux is receiving some visual changes that are planned. However, it's likely set to be in a while, as the writer working on it has noted that it's just a passion project for him. Unfortunate news knowing that it'll be distant, but definitely still great to know because Lux is one of the older champions on the roster, and her basic kit could really use some shine. The next major rework on the way is for Wukong. Riot Lutzberg is the one in charge of this one, and the only major work we've seen from him so far is Malphite's gameplay updates. While I do feel as though Malphite is pretty broken at the moment, I think the changes themselves have pushed him in the correct direction. Malphite received some extra power, but not in a way that left him without any counterplay. I'm just hopeful that the same can be said once again about League's Monkey King as he finishes this update as well. There are lots of changes lined up for Wukong, so let's go over them. First off, Wukong's passive is going to act differently and now has a new functionality added to it. Instead of providing bonus resistances for each champion, it'll now only activate when there are 3 or more champions nearby, but instead provide a significant sum. Additionally, casting abilities will empower his next basic attack with bonus range. This will make his passive a little bit more interactive in place of some boring stat boosts. His Q physical damage is actually being reduced a little bit, but in place of that loss, it'll now deal some bonus magic damage and also heal Wukong. Another new thing about it is that it'll allow him and his clones to start adding stack marks to their targets that increase damage by a percentage. You heard that right, we said his clones as well. Wukong's W now stealths him and allows him to dash to a nearby location. This can be used to jump over small walls, which is definitely a nice quality of life boost. The clone he leaves behind now won't move still, but what it will do is hit targets near it for 50% damage, applying on hit effects. The biggest change is to Wukong's E. You know how when he dashes at you, he splits up and hits multiple targets if there are several next to each other? Well, now when he splits up, he actually creates real clones. They act as units too, so they can intercept spells and also be targeted. Sounds like somebody's been watching Naruto. Finally, Wukong's ult will now be cancelled by casting other abilities. While some might find this as an inconvenience, this makes him more fluid and functional. The only downside is that you can't randomly mash your keyboard thoughtlessly now. It's a small increase in his skill floor, but adds a lot of good functionality. Definitely worth it, but overall it's not a significant change like his E is. The goal of these changes is to open up multiple playstyles for him. Honestly, when I first picked him up years ago, I played him as a bruiser, so I'm personally grateful to hear this. However, with the changes to his clones, having that extra durability also means he'll have more opportunities to mess with his foes and get in their heads. Comparatively, the assassin build really only uses his clone to provide a short stealth, so he can end up jumping on his enemies and blowing them up. At the heart of it all though, his lethality assassin build should still remain as a viable option. Being able to choose between the two is great, and it should put Wukong in a spot where he will have more chances to be picked up as a top laner. You can always adapt as the game progresses, and having those options is overall of course a buff. These changes seem like a good way to smooth out the edges in Wukong's gameplay. Adding sustain is huge, as most champions who are strong laners typically either have sustain, great wave clear, or sometimes even both. Giving Wukong sustain allows him to have some more competency in the laning phase and lets him stick around a lot longer. He has very low play rates, so it'll be nice to see any change that will bump him up as a less popular champion and give him some more spotlight. We did not see him at all at Worlds this year, so hopefully we can see some changes to competitive play rate in the near future. Let's talk a little bit about the 2 reworks that were voted on. Most of you guys already know this, but Fiddlesticks and Volibear are set to receive some changes in the near future. They're literally the next 2 champions on the update schedule, so hopefully we will see these bad boys out on the Rift pretty soon. Both of these champions are set to receive full visual gameplay reworks, so they'll be modernized and ready for basically what a new decade is for them. These champions are old, especially Fiddlesticks, who's part of the original cast of champions, so it's definitely nice to know that they have some makeovers lined up, and when all of the new champions seem so cool and so modern, it's just been hard for them to keep up. First up is Fiddlesticks, who's been a headache for a lot of players. One of the biggest grievances for players is his point and click fear. Good news and bad news. Bad news is that it's staying, but good news is that it's also staying. While it's annoying to play against, it's one of the few things that allows us to keep high mobility champions in check. So it's honestly something to be thankful for, since we know that Riot's balance team does like to take these things into consideration. Overall, we are going to see a lot more psychological fear play a part in Fiddlesticks' kit. Rather than keep it to a status ailment ailment in crowd control form, the idea is to make playing versus Fiddlesticks disorienting and have it always keep you on edge. In particular, his visual rework is something heavily anticipated, as he currently kind of looks like a makeshift scarecrow your uncle puts in his backyard for Halloween. Not very scary for a champion. It's no question that Volibear is another champion in desperate need of a gameplay update, and it's pretty obvious why. Originally, it seemed like Volibear was headed in the right direction of giving him an identity as someone who would be unstoppable by crowd control, and instead convert any crowd control effects into self-slows, but based on the strength and duration of those effects. They've shifted away from that direction, and as broken as it may have sounded, the developers did state that it was surprisingly balanced. Nevertheless, they've moved on to more themes revolving around a god of thunder, and are attempting to keep aspects of his old gameplay so that he's more palatable to the player base. While we're still waiting for the exact details of his rework, it's definitely exciting to know that he's getting one. This guy seems very dated, clunky, and not very satisfying to play from behind. He's a walking stat check machine with little to provide in terms of game diversity. I think the most unique thing about his kit is his E, which is sort of an anti-dash or even an anti-air-like property. The former in the sense that you'll usually flip them and then send them back to Earth by roaring in their faces. Hopefully though, he'll receive some changes that really help him stand out from the crowd as a unique juggernaut instead of remaining as a very basic champion. What we do know is that it's hinted that he'll be bringing havoc to both his opponents and the structures that they leave behind. Likely this means that he'll be able to either turret dive or demolish towers very quickly. Anyway, that will conclude this video. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you want to see more content like this, or a ton of helpful content related to gameplay, check out our YouTube channel as well as ProGuides.com, where we've teamed up with professional players to design the best content to help you improve. Once again, with the season coming to a close, we hope you made the gains you've wanted and are looking to root for all of you. If you've managed to hit the goals you set for yourself, congratulations. Good luck on the Rift, and we hope to see you all next time.